And now it's my pleasure to introduce Rajesh Baidu, who is the chief architect from Expedia Group. Welcome, Rajesh.
Thank you.
So, Rajesh, we're here to talk about the technology transformation in the era of Gen AI. Expedia is a technology company that sells travel. So I'm just curious, you all have been working on a very, very massive tech transformation. Maybe you can just start by helping everybody understand what's been going on behind the scenes at Expedia Group.
Certainly. Thank you, Henry, and thanks for having me on stage to share the Expedia story. So as most of you know, Expedia grew through acquisition over the last 15, 20 years. We acquired 21 different brands, and at various points in our journey, we decided to keep those brands separate, run those technology stacks separately in siloed manner. So over the last 4 or 5 years, we made a conscious effort to actually bring this technology stack together. So we've started breaking down those silos. We created a common platform that we moved most of these brands onto. In addition, we also built a centralized data lake. So we brought all the data that we have from our different brands into one data lake. The advantage of bringing all this technology together for us was we have been able to create an experimentation platform. We had 10 different experimentation platforms before. We're now down to one experimentation platform. We're able to drive features and functionality quickly across our B2C brands, but more importantly, we also make that available to our B2B partners. So experimentation, for example, we were able to run 8x more experiments this year than we've ever done before. So the power of bringing the platform together for us was really to speed innovation, to get features rolled out fast. And sometimes, when you look at features like price comparison, price protection, and things like that, we are able to roll that out not just across airlines, but also across lodging, our vacation rental business, and things like that. So we've got the foundation, and I think it's time now for us to capitalize on that, to actually start driving the tech innovation and the differentiation. And we're hoping we can turn that corner here in the coming weeks and months and years.
Okay, so I want to touch on two things that you mentioned. First is data. Data is one of my favorite four-letter words. And it's critically important for airlines and others, of course, in the travel industry, to use to create and refine products, pricing, revenue management, route planning, all of that, right? Yet we have seen that airlines, frankly, don't do a great job of capturing data. You sit on tons and tons of data. Tell us a little bit about how you can maybe help airlines be more successful in using the data you have to help them sell better, not just the cheapest fare, but whether it's premium economy or ancillary products or whatever it may be that you have.
Certainly, I'll give you a few examples relevant to this. So by bringing this data together, one of the key things we were able to do on our traveler side was create a single identity and profile across our brands. So you now can understand what the traveler is doing across these different brands. And by the partnerships we have with airlines, we are pushing things like member-only deals for flights. So we have a loyalty program. We have member-only deals for flights, which actually help the airlines in turn get access to a loyal Expedia customer that they can then use to upsell and in some cases monetize on that. The second interesting thing we have is we also have flight-sponsored listings, which has been a very profitable business for us that we are able to do because of this data platform. In addition, not just for airline, but as you know, since we operate a two-sided marketplace and we also have the supply side for lodging and others, we have partnered with the airlines. So, for example, with Ryanair and Iceland Air, we have pushed our white label template product. So what we've done is we are able to power hotels or vacations or cars, depending on which airline you're talking about. So we now give the airlines access to our loyal customer. They get to retain the customer. In addition, the airline is able to have this traveler book hotels or vacation rentals or cars on the site. So I think it's a big win there, and goes back to your point on how are we sharing the data, how are we opening up the wallet share for our airline partners. And these are some of the efforts that we are doing to actually push the industry in that direction.
Okay. And then you talked about the experimentation platform.
Yep.
Without revealing anything obviously confidential, can you share some of the things that you are experimenting with that airlines would benefit from?
Yeah, certainly. So, the things that we did was we came up with the price comparison feature, for example, to experiment with that to see what exactly are travelers interested in, which time window within which they want to make travel reservations and things like that. So we experiment on the B2C side. We make sure it's something that can be deployed quickly to our B2B partners. We're also working on things like price protection for our loyal members, where we're able to offer some of these. So I think we have, in addition to the navigation of the site, the smart search, for example, that's a capability that if you're on our template product, we can actually make you avail of that capability on the B2B side also. So these are things where we learn and refine it on our core platform. I think, as you know, machine learning and all of these things require data, require training and learning. And once it's available, I think it's a jumping off point that's easier for our B2B partners to get onto.
Great, thanks. You serve a very heterogeneous landscape. The tech investments that you all have been making allow you to reduce complexity and hopefully better serve both your partners as well as the travelers. Within this, you're using NDC, and that's critically important. I'm wondering if perhaps you could discuss a little bit more about what your efforts are in that area, because it's, again, such a big focus for the airlines,
Sure.
and we're here talking retailing.
Yep.
So,
I mean, we acknowledge, and we've had some great wins in NDC recently. We've got Iberia and Aer Lingus, and we also have a partnership with Amadeus that we're working through. So we believe in NDC, and as we're looking at new capabilities and some of these things around distribution, we certainly want to keep pushing the partnership. And in the US also, we have some airlines that we've started exploring opportunities with. So we're optimistic that NDC will open new opportunities. And I think back to that flywheel effect eventually, right? Besides the ancillaries and the air and everything around air, we also have an opportunity to partner with the airlines for the other attached business for them with lodging and vacation rentals, certainly. So I think we are optimistic that there's growth over there and that we can actually share some greater wins with them.
good. You touched on the B2B side of Expedia. That's obviously a huge part of your business. And it was a big focus you were sharing with me about the technology replatforming. I'm wondering if maybe you could discuss a little bit more about that and how the technology investments you've been making on the B2B private label side help your airline customers and the shared customers that you have.
Certainly. Again, we have three main products within that area, right? We've got our white label template product, which feeds off of the core Expedia.com template that we roll out to partners. We've got our rapid API, so where partners decide to use their own front end, but they're really looking for us for supply and for that. The other thing which doesn't get spoken about sometimes is we also have a very active and healthy servicing business. So with the call center, the servicing of the things, and we are using a lot of Gen AI over there. So we are able to start bringing some of those capabilities that we are doing around service call summarization, for example, for the service agents, which is saving umpteen amounts of time for them. We're able to also roll out our virtual chat feature. So we've used it on our side. I believe the statistics say about 70% of the people who have been able to self-serve themselves have had a good outcome. So we believe that self-service and virtual agent is something. The other one is we have a fraud prevention as a service that we rolled out, and Amex GBT was actually the first one who signed up for that. We have a very robust platform that we use for fraud protection. We've rolled that out. So I think with the B2B side, it's a combination of the traditional things that we've been doing. But as we've built new capabilities in AI, ML, and on the data side, we are looking at opportunities and how do we bring that to our partners to make them realize and benefit from this.
So let's touch on this, because I've been on airline sites. I see that they work with you with lodging, for example. So let's just say someone is shopping for a flight, and what they're buying is, let's call it value focused, right? It's economy, but maybe they've pre-selected seats and some other things. How do you use the data to refine so that you're able to say, okay, just because they're shopping for a cheap flight doesn't mean they want a cheap hotel, right? So, how do you help the airline with that? Because obviously, again, there's shared revenue
Right.
that the airline benefits from if you're able to help them sell that customer perhaps a more expensive hotel that the customer also likes.
Yeah, so I think that's where we work with the partners, right, to understand what exactly is the value proposition they want to offer to their travelers. And there's different ways to look at that through experimentation, through personalization, through the understanding of what the airline knows about the traveler and their preferences. And I think it's a constant iteration in terms of being able to capture that information, provide that back to the airlines so that they understand their travel base and customer base. We do a separate thing, right? I mean, B2C and B2B businesses are separate. So this is data that is segregated, data that is owned by the travel partner or the airline partner in this case. And I think it's something that we have to work through them. There's no, I would say, one size or cookie cutter way to approach this. It really depends on the value proposition of the airline, the traveler, and how do we then personalize and tailor this task for them. I mean, we have the entire lodging listing, as you know, but some airlines may choose to say, hey, I only want these price points to be shown on my site. So it's a choice that we have to work with them.
Okay. You mentioned that you've been working with Gen AI, and I'm just curious, where have the successes been and where have the stumbles been? We're all trying to figure this out, and it's fascinating because it's like we're all teenagers trying to figure out how do we actually go on a date.
I've heard a few different analogies. That's the first time I've heard that one. So, the Gen AI journey has been interesting. We were one of the first OTA brands to get onto ChatGPT. I think within 5 months, we launched some features within our app. I think the foundation that we laid with ML and data has helped us quite a bit because we knew that we had data and data quality. What we also have learned with Gen AI is we need to make sure the data is also representative of the population. Because sometimes you can have good data and high quality, but it may not be representative, and that's where you start introducing things like bias and things like that, right? So you have to make sure your data is representative. The other thing we've learned is you got to leave the foundational model, these large model development to the big players. They have way deeper pockets. They can hire the brightest talent in the world to get them to work for them. Instead, focus on what are the niche capabilities within your domain, in this case, travel, and the vertical that you could use. The approach we have taken is we want to be LLM agnostic. So we've built a layer where we can plug in whether it's an AWS LLM, whether it's an LLM from OpenAI, an LLM from Microsoft, or whoever else of the players are in this space, right? So we are able to plug and play, and we constantly keep benchmarking and looking to see what happens with these. We're also building our own LLM. So for example, on the lodging side, for amenities and features that are available at the property, what we've done is if you go on our site now, you'll notice you pick a property, there's a summarization of what travelers like right at the very top, like a little Cliff Notes version of it almost, because we notice that a lot of people like to see that before they book. So these are the things where I think you have to keep flexible. There's no reason to try to recreate the wheel right off of the coattails of some of these big players. But I think the important things is, again, data quality, data security, data privacy. These are things that have to be adhered to. Just because you could do it doesn't mean you should do it, right? That's the kind of philosophy we follow. So responsible and ethical usage of these technologies is important to us.
And are there any technologies that are emerging that you think will have an impact on how you do business and will benefit the airlines that you work with?
I think there's a lot happening right now in terms of even when you're in trip, in terms of what you can do to push the engagement and the experience, right? I think with the iPhone, I'm curious to see what comes out in iOS 18.1, which is around the corner with Apple Intelligence, because many times eventually it comes down to the device and the form factor that's in your hand. I think the new announcement from ChatGPT o1 or Strawberry with reasoning is something we're looking at, because there are times when you have a rapid response to a question, and maybe with reasoning and things like that, you can guide travelers to find a better vacation destination, or you learn more about the interaction. So I think as reasoning and these things come in, it is going to be interesting. In fact, it's interesting, Henry, that travel is always referred to as one of the most popular use cases for Gen AI. And I think everybody is still working to figure out what that is. You've got everything from travel search, travel discovery, in travel, in trip, post trip, and everything else. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with travel that we're just at the tip of the iceberg, I feel.
Well, Rajesh, thanks very much for this great insight. Thanks for sharing all of this information. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Henry. My pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to start the different breakout tracks. So the retailing track is going to stay in this room. We're going to wait a couple of minutes. And then, as Daniel mentioned, there's some other tracks that are starting at 10 a.m. The app, the World Aviation Festival app, is your, as he said, source of truth for the event. It is your best friend for the event. So if you have it, use it. If you haven't downloaded it, please do. Thank you for attending this our opening keynotes. And we will reconvene at 10 a.m. in about 5 minutes with the start of the retailing track here. Thank you.